feel like when it comes to choosing curriculum, there are so many options out there. Especially when you're first starting out, it can be very overwhelming and intimidating, and you are probably thinking, where should I even start? And I'm actually experiencing that a little bit this year. We will be going into our 6th year of homeschooling next year, but I feel like I've not been as confused about homeschool curriculum since our 1st year of homeschool. And so I am just going to go through a few things that I consider when I am choosing curriculum and trying to figure out what I want to do year by year, because each year is going to look different. So what you can take on your plate and tackle will differ from year to year. I did a how I choose curriculum video, and that kind of laid out my process of like what I go through and what I think from point A to point Z or whatever, whenever I finally choose and settle on a curriculum. But this is just things that I consider while I'm in that process of choosing a curriculum. So if you want to check out that video, I will link that below so that you can see that as well. So what's really, really helpful is to look at the big picture of everything and to look at how your overall homeschool is going to go. And I'm going to break down a few things that I really consider. If there's any that I've missed that you add, please feel free to leave them down below in the comments of things that you take into account. So let's get started with some things to consider when purchasing homeschool curriculum. So first thing to consider, how many kids are you going to be homeschooling and what are their ages? So the mom who has one 9th grader her homeschool is gonna look different than the mom who has only one child who is in kindergarten. Their days are gonna look a little bit different. The mom who has one child in kindergarten is gonna look different than the mom who has a kindergartner and a preschooler and a toddler and a newborn. So we have to consider how many children are we homeschooling, what are their ages, what are their independent level and dependent level, how dependent or independent on us are they? When considering how many kids have you only homeschooled 1 or 2 before and now you're adding in more to the mix this year? Is one of them going to school? Like for us, it changed up a little bit. I went from homeschooling 3 kids down to 2 kids this year. And so I knew that I could fit a little bit more onto my plate since I was gonna have one last child to be overlooking her curriculum. I could fit in a little bit more on my plate. The younger kids, they're obviously going to be very, very dependent on you, and that's okay. But just knowing that and going into it, realizing kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, even 3rd grade you're going to be really holding their hands for pretty much every single subject, whereas someone who's a little bit older, more in the upper elementary, middle school, high school, they're obviously going to be a lot more independent and can do a lot more on their own. So considering those things, I think really, really helps on how much you can put on your plate and how much curriculum and how in depth you want to go. Next one is consider the time that each subject is going to take. So we cannot spend 2 hours a day on every single subject. We will be homeschooling till 10 o'clock at night. We have to pick and choose what we want to focus and prioritize on and spend a little bit more time on. And that can change from year to year. So maybe in the younger years, you want it to be math and language arts and kind of put science and history kind of in the back burner, and they can just get a little bit of time, but you really want to focus on having them learning to read and things like that. Or maybe you're a history loving family and you really, really, really want to spend time and delve into the subjects and get a deep curriculum that is going to take a good amount of time, and you can spend a good amount of your day on that. You have to pick and choose what you want to do. So, for example, the past few years, we have spent probably more time in science than we have in history. So I think I might switch it up a little bit. And I think for next year, we're going to spend a little bit more time and energy on history, and science we'll still do science, but it just won't be, we won't be doing as much. So, even from year to year, it can change, but it's very, very easy to buy multiple curriculum. Like, let's say language arts, I want to do a spelling and a vocabulary and a reading and a handwriting and a writing program and a grammar program and this, and let's add in this, and all of that really takes time. So if you really want to focus and make sure that your child is getting a really like a strong language arts year, then that's fine. But maybe something else is going to have to take a little bit less time, just so you're not overwhelming yourself, overwhelming your children. And again, nobody wants to be doing school all day long. Next is, how much teacher involvement do you want to have? How much teacher involvement does the curriculum call for? So when it comes to like math, for example, there are certain programs where you can do it completely online and they'll grade your child's work for you, and you can be completely like hands off. I mean, you'll probably still have to help them a little bit, just because that's the nature of how it's going to go. But as for the most part, it'll be pretty much hands off. Or is it going to be something on the other side where it's very teacher intensive and you have to be responsible for like all the manipulatives and every single teaching of every single lesson and looking over every single problem that they do? So that is something to consider, again, subject by subject. So maybe you want to invest time into teaching this subject and this subject, but this one over here, you feel like, you know what, let me source that out and have someone else help me, whether it is an online program or something like that. Again, realizing we only have so much time in our day as moms, and not that homeschool should only take 30 minutes. Of course not. That's not what I'm saying. But it's realizing, you know, we can only do so much, especially if you have multiple children. We have to pick and choose what we are going to be responsible for very heavily teaching and what is going to be a little bit more hands off for us. Next one is, consider what activities you're doing, what extracurricular activities you're doing. Are you involved in a homeschool co-op that takes up an entire school day? Is your child doing multiple or even just activities? One activity per child really can add up. So, you know, sometimes that takes into the evenings and on weekends, because you really don't, I mean, I don't know for you personally, for me, I don't want homeschool and activities taking up our whole day that we never ever have time for family time and just being together and resting and relaxing and just having some downtime. So those things are something definitely to keep in mind. Next is just the general season of life that you will be in. So for example, if you are moving, you know, hey, next October we are going to be moving. Maybe your curriculum is a little bit gentler for at least the first semester of the school year, and you are having a little bit of an easier, lighter semester. It doesn't necessarily have to be a whole year, but it could just be for that time. You know that you'll have a new baby in the house. You know, an elderly parent is going to be moving in with you, and you have to make sure you're taking care of them and kind of coordinating and, you know, having two lives matching up together, two families coming together. And maybe you're going to work. There's so many different options, but looking ahead at, okay, this is the season of life. It's not our norm. And so maybe we don't have as much time. Or on the flip side of that, hey, this has been a really busy year or past few years. Next year is going to be a little bit quieter, a little bit calmer. I can add more onto our schedule and we can delve into these topics a little bit deeper. So considering general season of life, what your life is going to look like, I think will be really, really, really helpful. Next is, how much do you want to grade and how much do you want to check? I think this one can get really easily lost when we are in the hustle and bustle and like the ooh la la, look at the curriculum and I have to have this and I have to have this, and we want to have all of the curriculum and all the options and all the extras, and let's just try this one too and add this one. And it is so easy to do. But then in the reality comes of it, okay, now my child not only has all of this work to do every single day, I have to check it over too. And you, again, multiplying that by multiple children, you're going to be there for a long time checking over their work. So again, it's not that you want to skimp and say, you know what, we'll just do the bare minimum. I'm not saying that, but just keeping in mind, hey, every single thing that I'm adding to their plates is something that I have to make sure they're doing properly and that I am checking and correcting and going over with them every single day. Next is, how much do you want to spend? Okay, let's face it, it is a really rough time for many people for finances. Like, it really is. That's just how it is. And so I know that budget is something that is at the forefront of many of our minds. So it has to be like, okay, well, I really love this, you know, expensive science curriculum. Like, I don't want to compromise on that. So where can we compromise elsewhere? And not that you're compromising the quality of the education, because I personally believe if you have to spend a little bit more to get something that you know is going to be the best fit, then so be it. But you just have to keep that in mind, because it really, really does add up. So keeping in mind, how much do I want to spend? Am I just getting this because it looks pretty and it's really not fitting into our budget? That is something that is at the forefront of pretty much all of our minds, I would say. And last, but certainly not least, I recommend praying about your curriculum decisions. Now, I know not everybody who watches curriculum videos is a Christian, but if you are a Christian and you are, seeking to have that relationship, then I suggest praying about even small things like curriculum choices, because again, it really, really can be overwhelming. You can find yourself being confused, saying, being afraid, like, oh my goodness, I don't want to choose the wrong thing, or buying a curriculum that you felt didn't work in the past, and now again you're afraid, like, what if this isn't going to work again? And so, or just the general unpeace and not knowing, having peace about what you want to choose for your school year next year. And yes, curriculum isn't the end all be all. It's not what makes or breaks our homeschool, but it really, really does make a big, huge difference. I've seen it personally. So you can't just minimize that. I think that praying about that decision is something that should not be overlooked. And again, I didn't save it for last because it was least important, but I just wanted to wrap up with that final thought. I hope you found this video to be helpful. If so, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you have not already done so that you can see more homeschool content. I do like day in the life and motherhood and all that type of thing as well. So I'd love to have you stick around. I appreciate you being here, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.